Welcome to Between the Reads, where Black books are shared and celebrated all year long. I'm your host, Audra Russell. This week's episode was brought to you by author D.L. White, whose warm romantic fiction featuring Black men and women can be found at booksbydlwhite.com. There are so many great things going on this year as I continue to amplify Black stories, but I can't do it without your support. Please consider heading over to patreon.com/betweenthereads and becoming a member. Are you ready, boos and bros? Then sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Faye Snowden is the author of dark Southern Gothic mysteries with strong and flawed female leads. She has published short stories and poems in various literary journals, anthologies, and small presses, including the African American Review. A Killing Rain, a new book in her Noir Mystery Killing series from Flame Tree Press, will be released in June 2022. Her short story, One Bullet, One Vote, was selected for inclusion in the Best American Mystery and Suspense 2021, edited by Alifair Burke and Steph Cha. Faye is a member of Sisters in Crime and serves as secretary for Sync National. Aside from her publication, she managed 2 boys, a husband, 5 dogs, and 3 competitive writing fellowships over the years. Today, Faye works and writes from her home in Northern California. Faye, welcome to Between the Reads.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This is awesome.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. I'm excited. This book, and this makes me want to go back and read the first one.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get right to it. Tell our readers what A Killing Rain is all about.
It is a Killing Rain is, oh yeah, thanks, I'm joy to be here. But A Killing Rain is about a homicide detective who was formerly from a small fictional town called Bird's Landing, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And she had to take care of business in the first book, because she felt that she had a lot to make up for because her father was a serial killer, and she felt that, oh my goodness, to kind of make up for what he's done, I'm gonna be a homicide detective and put men like him away. Mm-hmm. But the job ate her up for many reasons. Yes. So she left and went to California to take care of some business. But when she came back, she decided, look, I'm not going to be a homicide detective anymore. Right. I'm going to live the life that I've always wanted to live. Mm-hmm. But, of course, in books, that can never happen because there would be no books. Right. So her nephew is kidnapped by a serial killer, and she has to go back into homicide police work in order to save him. Mm-hmm. Now, tell us the inspiration behind the Killing series. It is so funny because when I explain this, people's eyes bug out and says, "You did not just say that about your dad. You just not." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I kind of did." Okay, so, but I love my dad. Let me start by saying that. I love that man. I love Dad. I love you. And he's my biggest fan. I love him. But he and my mom divorced when I was quite young, and it was a very acrimonious divorce. Mm-hmm. So they talked about each other, they talked crap all the time, but I really favored, my dad never did, but my mom did. But I really favored my dad. Mm-hmm. And so my mom would tell me how awful my dad was, and I used to think, well, how much is that in me? So, you just kind of, because a kid, you're going to have those kind of thoughts. Right. And so, as an adult, I was sitting I was just sitting down kind of thinking about that one day, and I'm like, man, could you imagine if your dad was really bad? I mean, what does that mean for you? Right. Wow, what if your dad was a serial killer? Mm-hmm. And then I was off to the races. And so I always begin, every book I write, I begin it with a question. And that question was, how would a woman feel if her dad was a serial killer? How will she navigate that dark past? And so that question just dropped out of your head with my dad. What if my dad was a serial killer? I know. And he's like, I don't think he is though. So right. He's not. Yeah. I'm sure your dad's over there like, baby girl. Right? I know. He is. He's like, I don't think he's ever heard the story. He's not. I mean, he's almost 90 years old, but he's fit, but he's not a computer literate. Uh-huh. So his brothers or sisters would have to say, Braxton, let me tell you what Faye's been saying. Tell you what your daughter's been up to. Yeah, like, okay, my aunts and uncles, but, I always look at it like, gosh, if I can go back and change some of the things I've done in my life, the way I work, I hurt people, or the way, I would, and we're all human, right? So you have to, there's a sense of forgiveness and love, especially with your parents.
Right.
And that's frankly what Raven struggles with in the book. Yeah.
So you write strong and flawed female leads. So let's talk about Raven Burns. She's a hard-nosed detective who's intelligent. She knows her job well, but also her dad is a serial killer and used her as a child as his bait to lure his prey. But she was also a murderer herself, who would hear her dad's voice all the time.
Exactly.
So let's talk about her and her complexities.
Yeah, she's a very complex character. She is trying to figure out what kind of person she is, right? If you read the first book, and in the first book I hint around that Floyd was just her dad was just going to be her dad no matter what. He wasn't going, but for Raven, she knows that she thinks that she has a choice, right? I can either decide to be a good person, or I can decide to be an evil person like my father. So she's trying to, and that's a false decision, right? Or it's like there's so many things wrong with that. But she's trying to do things through acts to kind of prove what kind of person she is, right? And sometimes she makes awful decisions, as you can see in the book.
Yeah. Now, do you think that, and I guess I'm kind of asking you this as more of a reader than the writer of the book, do you really think Raven can redeem her family and push its legacy away from the dark past of her father?
No.
Yeah.
It's got to be embraced. And I think that, and I don't want to zen out on you, or like get all zen and new agey.
Please do. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll zen out. Because I really think that we are enough as human beings, right? That Raven is out there trying to prove that she's a respectful citizen and she's worthy of humanity. To be treated like a human being and all that stuff. And I believe wholeheartedly that when you're born on this earth, you get that. That those are what we call table stakes. You already get that. So there's no way that you can prove your humanity to someone who's thinking that you're inhuman, right? I don't think you can change those decisions. And I think Raven is just going about it in the wrong way. She needs to live her life according to her purpose, but she needs to find what that purpose is, and approach it with joy. And I feel like that's what she's avoiding. She's avoiding, and I don't know if you could kind of see it in the book. She's kind of avoiding doing that, right? She doesn't. She's trying to seek a path to enlightenment, if you will, or a way to be human. It's wrong. But you'll never get there. She's gonna be running forever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that she killed this man. So it's like it's kind of hard for her to try and do this different thing when she's really kind of, it's almost like she's following in her father's footsteps, not for the same reasons, but because with him it was just he got joy out of killing people. With her it was she felt like she had a moral reason for killing who she killed, but you feel like there's something there in the undercurrent, but she's just, like you said, she's afraid to really speak on it or embrace it, because I feel like my interpretation is that I feel like she just really knows that she can't get away from what her father's done, and like it's almost like she's not deserving to have something of her own.
And that's what when I write her, and when I read what I've written, that's how I feel. She feels like she doesn't deserve, but she does, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I feel that a lot about her. She's an interesting character. When I was writing the book, and when I'm writing really well and enjoying myself, the character usually comes to me whole. Floyd kind of just came in there and says, "Hey," and kind of sat down next to me and started talking. I'm like, "Oh, now you're a fully fully formed character.
Right.
But Raven, I had to really work on getting to know her and figuring out what this character wanted and needed, and a lot of free writes, a lot of interviewing her to try to figure out where she was coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, her dad's voice being in her head, you know, part of me wondered, like, is she, like, partly, maybe just a little bit, you know, schizophrenic? Because, like, her dad is constantly, you know, she summons him as if he's still around.
I know. Yeah, it could be. She could have some mental illness going on.
I mean, because that's a lot of trauma as a child.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And her stepmom, Jean.
Aww.
I feel like there was something, like she really had this, I mean, obviously, something happened, I won't say what, but she had this connection with her, I feel like, and she just never got over what happened, you know, because she kind of mentions her throughout the book, and it was always like a kind of like a pause when she mentioned her.
Yeah, I love that Jean character, because I felt that you know, when we have like troubled childhoods, there's always this one, well, not always, but if you're lucky, there's this one person who they're not gonna, if they don't completely heal you, they will get you a little bit further along than you were before you met them. And I felt that's where Jean was for Raven, right? She got her a little bit further along. And then her mentor, who we mentioned in the book Oral Justice, also got her a little bit further along. So kind of just meeting those people that will help you, and that's what that Jean character represents to me. Yeah.
Now, the story takes place in Bird's Landing, Louisiana. I want to talk about this place because Billy Ray, one of the characters, he said it's an evil town where more lynchings had taken place than anywhere in the entire country, and Floyd, Raven's father, said it's a town in love with death. Now, was this some place that you based off of something, a real town, you know, and why Louisiana? Let's just talk about those decisions.
Yeah, Louisiana is where I grew up.
Oh,
so I grew
okay.
up in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is a really different town, and I grew up in a period where there was still a lot of overt racism, and I had to navigate as a young person. Very poor, beautiful town. So it's like the dichotomy between, you know, I'm watching television and there's food on it and I want it, but I can't get it. And then the beauty of the lakes and all that, and then so I wanted it someplace in Louisiana because I felt that. In Caddo Parish, Louisiana, I read somewhere that they had more lynchings than any other place in the country. So I feel that with all that, I'm going to call it evil, right? I feel that it just does something to the culture and the atmosphere, and that's why I wanted to choose it in that kind of a hellscape, if you will, that kind of place where it can really breed some folks that are not like everybody's evil, but just some people that are really kind of off the rails when it comes to that. And then I also wanted that New Orleans feel, so what I did was base it on New Orleans and kind of Shreveport kind of mushed in together, and I just made my own little town.
Yeah, and I still need to look up, as it's pronounced, Zydeco music.
Oh my gosh!
I need to look that up. I've never heard of it before this book, so I wrote it down in my notebook. I was like, oh, let me look this up.
Oh, you will be so surprised. I actually have a playlist on Spotify that I made with Buckwheat Zydeco.
Okay, so that is a real group. Okay,
that's a person.
A person.
Yeah,
okay.
He was kind of and he passed away. I want to say in 2014.
Okay.
But oh man, the washboards, the accordions, and it's so weird that when you think about it, especially growing up in Louisiana, I was like, oh, I didn't get a lot of that Louisiana stuff on me. None of that was on me. But then when you listen to the music and you do the, you know, they're doing the I've got the Fortier, the washboard thing, and you're like, yeah, and it was like, oh my goodness, it did rub off on me.
It did rub off. It's always
because you say, I'm sitting on my yaya, you know, waiting on my la la, you know, like dancing and like kids are sticking their head in the door, and they're like, "Yeah, Mom, calm down, calm down."
You're up here, Mom. I need you to come down too.
Exactly. Yeah, you should.
Yeah. I'm gonna definitely look it up. I wrote it down in my notebook. Whenever I'm reading, I always have a little notebook close by, and when authors mention things that I don't know about, I write them down, and it's like, then I end up going down these rabbit holes. But So.
Oh, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did, like I said, I love the way that Bird's Landing felt almost like itself was alive, like the city itself, like it was this lair that, just trapped people there, and people when they were there, they just never left.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you got that feeling, because I write in a style that I am fascinated with, the style called the Southern Gothic, and it's a writing genre, if you will, that talks about, you're living in a place that has become so corrupted by its past, right, by the lynchings and that it kind of traps and poisons people. If you don't get a handle on it, right, you got to get a handle on it.
Right,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
And that's what Raven doesn't do. She doesn't get a handle on it.
Yeah, but I like that. I could see the town itself kind of playing a character in the book, as well as everybody else that's in there. So,
right.
Now, speaking on Billy Ray, who we mentioned, let's talk about him and Stevenson, because these were two men that we ain't gonna say what Stevenson did, because I'm not gonna give it away. But Stevenson wanted Raven to pay for something he believes she did.
Yes.
And Billy Ray wants her to move on and forget about this thing.
Oh yeah, I okay.
That she did.
That's a good insight. Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the Stevenson character, I don't know. I just think of him as, when you do something bad, they're like, now you'll feel better if you talk about it and tell folks and take responsibility. I'm like, I'm enjoying this cookie I just stole. I don't need to. And it's good. I don't need to pay for it. I'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah. And then Billy Ray is really wounded. He's going through I think somebody else kind of PTSD. So sometimes when people go through that, they just want to forget about it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. And you're my friend, so I don't want to believe you did this really terrible thing.
Right.
So I see it as that way too, which is not healthy, right? And I don't know what's going to happen in book 3 and 4, because there are going to be 4 books in these series. So there's like a lot of diving, some deep diving I'm going to have to do to figure out how she's going to come out, right? Because I do believe that if you don't own up to what you did, then that's a stain on who you are.
Right.
It keeps you further from yourself, but yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Just those two men in her life that are just, pulling at her to each on. They're like polar opposites. That was just such an interesting dynamic to kind of watch that. And then when Stevenson kind of revealed what he revealed, and her father came back and was like, it's like her father always came and coached her through things when she was in these sticky situations. So it was just interesting to watch the dynamic play out between the two of them, because it's like they were really, I can't even say the good and bad angels on her shoulder, because Billy Ray's not bad. He just wants her to stop letting it control her and wants her to move on. But Stevenson is no, you have, before you can do that, you got to face it, So that was just a very interesting dynamic for me.
Did you like Stevenson in the book? I'm just curious. I know
No.
I'm not supposed to be asking the question.
I did not like Stevenson at all. I had this icky feeling about him from the moment he came into town and said he was a scout. I was just like, I get feelings about people. My grandmother told me when I was 10 years old, she said, you have a gift. You're going to be able to read people And you're going to be able to read people that a lot of people may not be able to read. And it's going to cause you problems because people aren't going to believe you. And when Stevenson was on that page, that thing kicked in and I was just like, nope. I was like, don't believe him, Raven. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't get involved. No. Don't get involved. I was screaming at her the whole time. Like, no. When you got to the next paragraph, she was like, oh, we've been dating for a few. I'm like, what? What are you doing? No. We don't want to date him. There's something wrong with him. No.
Yeah, no. Right. I was just curious.
She and Billy Ray need to get together. That's what I want to see happen.
Oh, you want to see that happen? Okay.
Yes. I want to see them get together. But I don't know if it's because because Imogene need to just go somewhere. Imogene was just... she was doing too much. And Edme, God bless Edme. I don't even know what to say about Edme except, she just, she went through a lot. She went through a lot of trauma. So, I mean, I don't like her. I don't dislike her. She's just kind of one of them characters I didn't really care too much about. But Stevenson, no. Hate him. Don't like him. No. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. You can kill him off. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, my writing partner was saying that either. She said, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do in the next book. And she was like, kill Stevenson. Yeah. He needs to go. I need to see that happen, Faye. I need him to go. In, the worst possible way. I was hoping he was going to end up as one of the victims. Ooh.
Yeah.
That bad.
That bad. I didn't like him. Especially after what he did to her. I was just like, nope. Yeah, no. So now, a lot of the action in The Killing Rain takes place off the page.
Yeah. Which
really keeps the tension high. And all of the characters in this book seem to have ulterior motives. So even when I thought I knew somebody, like Stevenson, there was a plot twist, and it made me rethink everything. When you were writing, did you know how these things were going to unfold? All these plot twists, or did they just happen as you wrote the book?
I knew how they were going to unfold because in genre fiction you have these rules that you have to follow. So I needed to create some red herrings, right? So I did have a list of all my characters. I knew who my villain was when I started, or the murderer was. But then I just gave them, I'm going to tell you something about that too. But then I just gave them little clues that made the reader think, yeah.
Right.
But when I first started the book, I fell so in love with the person who was supposed to be the killer that I couldn't make them the killer.
Really?
I'm not going to tell you who that was, but I said I
have my guesses.
Yeah.
I have my guesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it start with a C?
No.
No? Oh, well then, damn, that just blew me out the water.
Good. I mean, I did my job well. Yes. I did my job well. If you're like, no, it should have been so-and-so.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally thought. Because I'm not saying what the ending is. All I'm saying is, when I got to that page, my eyes were like, what?
Yeah.
Didn't even suspect. Wasn't even on my list. Wasn't even on my list. So you wrote the hell out of this book because that wasn't even on my list.
That makes me feel so good. Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally blown away. That's why I said, I need to go back and read the first one. And then reread this one. Because, I just need to see how I will interact with it after I read the first one again. They are standalones, right? You can just read them.
You can, and then I always give my editor props. I love being edited. A lot of people don't like it, but my editor, I'm like this, because he said, Faye, when I sent him the first book, he says, you got to have this read like a standalone, and here are my suggestions and how you can do that. And we worked very hard to make sure that folks didn't have to go back and pick up the first book.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to do that with all of them. You can be able to read them like a standalone.
Mm-hmm. But when you read this, readers, I'm going to tell you it's going to make you want to go back and pick up A Killing Fire. Because I need to know if I'm going to get any insights from that one that might help me figure out things a little bit more with this one. But yeah. So Willie Lee Speck, and
I love him.
Really?
He's just so weird.
Yes, and that creepy little dude, the homeless guy with the Volkswagen van.
Yeah.
Where the hell did they come from, Faye?
I don't know where the Volkswagen van. Well, I love Volkswagens. I wish I would have brought one, but if you could see on my, I have lots of. I collect the little vans.
Okay.
And I drive a VW, so I love them.
Yeah, I used to drive. We still have one in the garage. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Mm-hmm.
What year?
It is I want to say 2004. It was a Volkswagen came out with an R32. And my husband has one, and there were only 5,000 of the one that he has made. Oh. And of that, I think there's like maybe 2,000 left or something like that, because a lot of young kids were driving them, and they're really fast, and they were wrapping them around trees. So, and then I drove a GLI for years and years and years. So. Yeah,
no. Then and I just wanted to work one in the book, and I saw that truck. I was just kind of doodling around on the internet because I belong to all these VW Facebook groups, and I said, "Oh, I like that truck, and it's got to go in my book." And so I put the brown and white. But Willie Lee Speck, I did a lot of research on trauma cleaners, and when I was doing my research, I found out that some of them are really personable, and they're really there for the victim. They're really respectful, but then there's some of them that are just out for the money, and the worse the crime scene or the worse the trauma scene, the more money they make, and that's who I based that character off of. Is that you'll be amazed. You will be amazed. Wow. Amazed. If you're ever, yeah.
You know, I always say, writers that our browser history has to be among the most interesting.
Yes.
Because you're just sitting here talking about, I researched trauma cleaners. I'm wondering what kind of rabbit hole that was.
It was a bad one. It's where you're looking at your computer, you're like, what's going on? Right. You're like this.
Right. Like,
yeah,
oh my
exactly.
God. Yeah, because the stuff that you were writing about, like the brains on the wall and the blood, and then, and he's just like, Willie just doesn't care. He just blames them all for whatever. Like even the guy that had a heart attack while he was going to the bathroom and fell off the toilet and hit his head, he even blamed him. I'm like, how do you blame a man for having a heart attack and falling and hitting his head on the bathtub? What are you doing? Willie was just like, he didn't care about nobody. It's like, if you died, you're a punk. And all he cares about is getting the money to clean up all your guts and blood.
Yeah. He was kind of a funny character, though.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of comic relief, and
he was. But the little homeless dude that had the VW van just was collecting everything. Where did he come from?
I don't know, but I do know inside I have this weird thing about stuff. I think there's like 1/4 of me that's a hoarder, and the other 75% is like, throw that crap away. I think that when I brought him out, I think I was bringing out my little hoarder that, I was getting all attached to stuff. And then, because I also, and not on purpose, but I also have a thing that we, especially in this country, have an unhealthy relationship to stuff.
Yeah.
And consumerism, and it's more important. Like my stuff, like I knew this one guy who said he bought a weapon and he had it in his house, and he had several, and I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm protecting my stuff. Somebody gonna come in and get my stuff. And I was like, you know what? If somebody feels they have to come in and take my stuff, I'm just like, you want this stuff? Here, take this stuff.
Take this stuff.
It's not. Just stuff, right? And then that's what the little homeless dude. You know what? It's terrible. His name is escaping me.
I can't remember his name either.
His name.
I think, is it Oz or something like that?
Oh, yes, Ozzy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And then there is a poem out there called Ozymandias.
Uh-huh.
I was roaming in the desert and I saw this big head of a statue, and you can look it up, but that's where his name came from.
Okay.
So that's how the relationship to stuff, and it just doesn't mean anything. It's not going to mean anything 100 years from now, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially not the stuff in his van, because it's all from these places where all these people died.
Exactly.
Ew, like that van has a whole bunch of bad spirits and juju attached to it. I don't even want to be in that van. Little brown van. It's just like death just rolling around on wheels around Louisiana.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah. Now, all the characters in your book have dark sides, and there are no like hard, fast heroes in your novel. Like, everybody has, I mean, there's Billy Ray, but there's no like one person that's like, I'm the hero, I'm the best, I'm clean, this is like my whole, I have my stuff together. There's no real like one person who's the hero. So why did you choose to just do the characters this way?
I mean, I have not met that person, right? I mean, everybody has a dark side, and I think that another thing that I have is zenning out. I think that if we don't recognize that some of the things that happen in the society are not, they're of us, right? Anybody's capable of anything. Right. It depends on where your moral compass is, and how well you know that, and how well you can, in some sense, control it. So that's probably where that's coming from. And that's an interesting question. I'm so glad you asked that. I think that, what about the old folks? You don't think they had their dark side? Everybody had a little something going on.
Everybody had something going on. Yeah. Like, it's, like I said, I feel like this is like the town just has infected everybody in that town. Like, and me, like, I read a lot, but I'm also a writer, so like my writer's imagination is going off, and I feel like when Billy Ray was playing with the soil and he was talking about how all the lynchings happened there, I feel like there's this virus that's in that city. It's like this evil, and it's just evil, and it just infects everybody in that city to different levels, like you said, based on where their moral compass is, and some people are able to fight it off, control it, and some people aren't. So that's why I said I just don't feel like there were any real heroes in this town, because everybody in some way was infected by the bad history of that town, So that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's that's an observant point. As a matter of fact, I got my pen here because I'm thinking about the sequel. Thanks, Audra.
You're welcome. Glad I could help.
I'm like, ooh. Because the next one is going to be based on air and wind, and but as I say this a lot, I cannot call it a killing wind because I see my two boys every time you say fart, they all fall on the floor. So I have to think of something else.
I'll have to think about that for you. Find some synonyms for wind or something like that. A killing breeze.
Ooh, there you go.
Maybe.
Ooh, well, I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Somebody said a killing tempest. But
that could be. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm thinking about the town, and I like breeze because it's almost like it's a gentle, thing
you
that
don't
you don't know, and you almost don't feel it until it's just too late and it's right up on you. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So let's shift a little bit to more of the writing. Female crime detective stories, especially black female crime detective stories. There are great ones out there, but in my opinion, there are not enough.
Oh, no.
So why did you choose this genre? Or, was it specifically because you wanted to see more female detectives, or was there another reason?
Because I wanted to see more black people in this genre and black female detectives, and I kind of wanted to reclaim it. Okay, so my mystery friends are going to make them mad. But because the golden age of detective fiction, and I don't know which one, they erased us. I mean, you didn't even, if black people were in it, they were being thrown out. I don't remember what book it was, but it was about one of these books, either Chandler or somebody else, where he talked about his character coming across a Negro, he said, or whatever. He didn't even say the name, he said it. And in the first pages, that person gets thrown out of a bar. So it's like them throwing us out. So I'm like, and then mystery people, one of the reasons they say that it's so popular when it was in the golden age is because that's when we were going through a lot of change in America. You know, World War II, I'm sorry. Civil rights, nuclear, everything, atomic, everything was just kind of anxiety written. And so detective fiction, and this is just a theory, so don't yell at me. Detective fiction was a way of setting that straight, of making us feel better. And I feel that, it's making you feel better, but there are no black people. So I'm like, so I kind of wanted to reclaim it and then kind of tell our own stories in a different way. So it's like, for example, one more thing is like, if you look at, I wanted to, because when I grew up poor in Louisiana in a shotgun house, and we did not have a good relationship with the police. We just did not. And then, like a lot of people, when they write their stories, they'll have this wonderful cop who's, beautiful, that follows all the rules and stuff. But in our neighborhood, from what we saw, cops didn't follow any rules either. So kind of reclaiming the genre, kind of that talking about the cops that are kind of at a slant, right? They don't follow that straight, narrow path. They break the rules. They explore, and I just kind of wanted that. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I have a couple of books on black authors in crime fiction, like talking about the history of writers in the genre. And that's how I came across people like Rudolph Fisher and I think Chester Himes and some other authors that I had never heard of until I had gotten this book. And then I have like Delia Pitts was on my show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. She's awesome.
Yeah, back when I first started in 2020, she was on my show, and then I did a panel for Black Readers Con, and I interviewed Kelly Garrett, Tracy Clark, and the man's name escapes me who wrote 40 Acres. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. But I interviewed them, and we talked about crime fiction. So we've really always been in the genre, but just like with anything, they don't want to recognize us.
No. And then the character, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Chester Himes had to go to France, right?
Right, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like I said, with crime fiction, before I read that book, the only person that really came to my mind when I thought about it was Walter Mosley, which no shade to him, but there were lots more out there. And that's how I discovered Barbara Neely and, lots of other crime writers. So it's like we're out here, but it's just we're not as well known as we should be because traditional publishing doesn't want to acknowledge our existence really in anything other than urban fiction, romance.
Right.
Which no shade to those because I love a good romance book. Every once in a while I'm in the mood for some urban fiction, but we're not a monolith. We're really out here in all the genres. So.
Yeah. And you're familiar with the Crime Writers of Color website, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. I found out about that through Tracy Clark and Kelly Garrett, who I spoke to during the panel. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where I keep tabs on. Have all these little tabs that I keep on my Chrome, and that's one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tracy Clark. She's interviewing me on Monday. She's awesome. She's gonna do it. We're gonna do an hour and talk and
nice
and all this stuff. So
that's great. That's great. So now you did say that A Killing Rain is the sequel to A Killing Fire, and it's a 4-part series. Can you share a little bit about what we can expect in the other 2 books?
In the last one, it's really weird. I've got that one down. I know what the crime is. It's gonna be a bonanza. But and I can't wait. Maybe I should write that one first.
Yeah.
Or at least sketch it out.
Right.
But the second one, I think I know a little bit about what it's gonna be, but it's not in any I just can't. I don't know yet. It's too nebulous. I can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, all I want to know is that I want Stevenson to die. That's all I want.
I may give that to you.
Give me that, and I'm good. I'm good.
Let me write that down. Stevenson must die.
Stevenson must die. On the list. And
on the list.
I don't know. I need to see something happen between Billy Ray and Raven. I need that. So what was one of the most difficult things to write about A Killing Rain?
It was during the pandemic, and I wasn't thinking straight, and I had to I had a deadline, and I'm a type of person. I'm an A personality. I never miss a deadline. I felt that everybody was just dying all around me, and which was for losing some cousins that I hadn't, and my stepmom died, and it just felt like, not of COVID, but she just passed away during that time, and I just felt like my world was coming apart. So even just like doing it was tough for me. So I really had to, we do things in our lives that are really, really hard. And then 5 years later, we're thinking about how the heck did I do that?
Right.
What was in me that, because now I was just, if I could talk to myself back at that time, I would have said, Faye, forget about it.
Right.
Don't do it. But I did it anyway, and that was the hardest part. Getting the thing down on paper. The first draft was bad, and I had called my agent and my publisher, and I said, I could give you what I got, but you're not going to like it. So please let me have a little bit more time so I can put out something that's decent. Right. And I just got to work. Yeah.
That had to be rough,
really
though. You're dealing with a pandemic, and then you're writing about death. Yeah, I could see where that's going to be. That's going to be a difficult thing to deal with. So, who was your favorite character to write?
I have favorite. Raven was fun to write, but I loved writing Willie Lee Speck. I just loved writing him.
Weirdo!
Lawyer, Lawyer, in case you didn't know. Yeah, in case you didn't know. I just had fun writing him.
And Raven was like trying to, get Billy Ray. She was like nudging him, and she was like, and when he read it, she was like, well, you made him mad now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He was a fun guy to write. And then, I don't know, I liked writing Edme.
Okay.
I liked writing her. And then, Emma Jean's just Emma Jean. She's just going to be, I don't know where she came from.
I told you she need to go somewhere.
Yeah, somebody else wanted me to kill her. I'm like, you guys are ruthless.
Oh, she don't need to die, but she needs to be one of them ones that just like... She makes it out of Bird's Landing for whatever reason. Just go. Have a good life somewhere else. Just leave. You're doing too much. You're doing too much.
You're extra. You're extra.
And you would think Edmund would be the extra one, because she's perfectly dressed and all that, but Imogene is just, ugh.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to aspiring authors who want to get into crime fiction?
I would say get to know the genre. I would say read as much as possible. Just read widely. Like you say, do that survey. Pretend like you're at school. You're doing a literature survey. Go back and read like the greats like Chester Himes Neely, Rudolph Fisher. But then read. Yeah, he wrote The Conjure Man Dies.
Yeah, The Conjure Man Dies.
Okay. Yeah, just read as much as possible, and then read contemporary, and then join a community, and then start writing, and don't even think about looking for an agent or trying to get an agent or even asking those questions. Pretend like there are no agents and there are no publishers. Then write the best book that you know how to write. And then when you know it's the best book, then you start using your community to kind of figure out how to get an agent and that type of thing. But I know that a lot of people who ask for advice say, hey, I have this book, and they'll give me something. And I said, oh, sure, I'd love to read it. We need new voices. But I look at it and I say, this is not a book. And then they feel like they're they feel all upset, and this is my book, you don't understand. I'm like, I know it's your book, but it's not a book.
Right.
So another thing is, I wrote a Wicked blog for the Wicked's website, and it was like, your book is not your baby, right? Realize that it's a product, and then there's expectations, and it's not your baby. You need to be about the business of writing as well.
Yep.
And study the craft. Study the craft.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, where can readers find your book? And when
all over.
Let's start with this. When is A Killing Rain coming out?
It is Tuesday, June 21st.
Which, by the time my listeners hear this, it will be Tuesday. So that means go get the book today. And where can we find your book?
It is all over Amazon. I saw it Target. I don't know if it's in the stores, but it's definitely you can order. But Amazon, any independent bookstore. My publisher is quite small, but they're awesome. Flame Tree Publisher, but they're distributed through Simon & Schuster. So anywhere you pick up your books, your favorite places, you can get it.
Okay, great. And where can we find you on social media and the internet?
I have a website, FayeSnowden.com, where you can follow me. I'm also on Twitter. That's where I spend most of my time.
Okay.
I am also on Facebook. Just friend me. You'll be in there with my family and my fam bam, and you'll be seeing pictures of the grandkids. And then, maybe you'll see me get in a fight with my sister, and you'll see this has really happened. I love my sister. I got in a fight with my sister on Facebook, and I knew. I mean, what am I? I'm not 12. I got in a fight with my sister on my Facebook, and then my aunt jumps in. Cut it out, you fools. And I'm like, okay. So you'll see that only happened once. I've been on Facebook for years and years and years. But you'll see, my fam bam. And then also, but I talk about my books a lot on Facebook.
Okay.
That's what I primarily use it for.
Okay.
Instagram, I'm old. I haven't figured out Instagram yet, so I try.
Okay.
But I spend most of my time on Twitter, Faye_Snowden, and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have come to the end of our show. Thank you so much for being here with me today, giving me this advanced copy of your book, allowing me to interview you. I'm honored.
It's so awesome. It's so fun to talk about people who read the book and then interview me, because you guys I just see that world all around me, and you just make it real for me. So I do so appreciate you reading the book and talking to me about it.
I enjoyed it, absolutely. And Booze and Bros, you know what time it is. At the end of every show, I give you a quote. And today it comes from the late, great African-American mystery novelist, Barbara Neely. And she said, "I wanted to pay homage to working women because they are the bridge that got us over. My work is about the people who are assumed not to have a worldview."
Exactly.
Until next time, you know what to do. Grab a book and read. And I'm out. You've been listening to Between the Reads. I'm your host, Audra Russell. Thanks for lending me your ear. This week's episode was brought to you by author D.L. White, whose warm romantic fiction featuring Black men and women can be found at booksbydlwhite.com. If you enjoy this content, please consider supporting this independent podcast by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/betweenthereads or making a one-time donation at www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. That's www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. Tune in next week for another great episode.